guys, welcome to the Made in Sims podcast, a place where we're interviewing people that were made in Sims, make things in Sims, and help us make Sims who it is today. I'm Kenneth Havens, and today we are here with Bre Vigor. Hey, Brianna.
Hey, how are you doing today?
Doing good. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so you were the first person that I've interviewed that is not a business owner currently in the city of Sims, and I was really interested in interviewing you. I've heard you speak at the Sims Chamber Luncheon. I've heard you speak at a couple of different places, heard a couple of different podcasts that you were on, and just really impressed with your story. I think the message that you speak is important to hear as a teenager. I think it's important to hear as a parent. I think as a community, it's really important to be aware. And so one thing is you are still reigning as Miss Mobile Bay.
Yes.
So we're going to get into all that. We'll unpack all that in the episode today. So if you will, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Bre Vigor, and I grew up here in Sims, Alabama. I come from a loving home. I have two amazing parents and an older sister named Savannah. I graduated from Mary G. Montgomery High School in May of 2020. Thankfully, we got to graduate during COVID.
Barely made it.
I know. I now attend the University of Mobile on a track and field and cross-country scholarship, majoring in criminal justice with a minor in business.
That's awesome. So you said you had two amazing parents. I actually had the privilege of buying and we talked about that a second ago, purchasing my first home. And your mom was there. She said that, I think, so I've been married now for 10 years. And I think we purchased a house. I purchased the house a year before I ever got married. And she was talking about like you were like playing in the dirt and stuff like that. So it's really cool how everything kind of makes full circle. Yeah. So again, you are reigning as Miss Mobile Bay. Can you tell me a little bit about what that means?
Yeah. So Miss Mobile Bay, I am associated with the Miss America organization. And this June, I'll compete for the title of Miss Alabama. Fingers crossed that I win, and then if I do, then I'll go on to compete for the title of Miss America, which is absolutely insane.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But essentially what we do is it's a scholarship program. All of this it's wrapped around the idea of we want to empower women to help them succeed in their goals,
right?
Which I absolutely love. But every single girl who competes, we have to have what is called a social impact initiative, and that's just a fancy word for a platform. It's what we're most passionate about in our community and what we feel is maybe the biggest societal issue that we have today and that we want to advocate for. And mine specifically is online predators and human trafficking, just because of what happened to me whenever I was younger. I believe that this is a message that everyone needs to hear today.
For sure.
Especially, it's so detrimental, especially in the times that we're in right now with COVID and technology being shoved in everyone's faces. This is a wake-up call.
Absolutely.
We have to be aware of what's going on and what we can do to help fight it.
Yeah, I remember getting my first. My first cell phone. It was one of the Nokias. It was one. It was before the flips. It was not in a bag. I'm not that old. I remember, and it had like the different face plates that you could change. And I remember like fighting my parents because I was like, I really want a phone, and I was like 13, 14, didn't need a phone. Mm-hmm. But what's crazy is I say that to fast forward. I have two children. I have one that's 3 and I have one that's 6, and the 3 is about to be 4. And one of the biggest fights that we have right now with the 6-year-old is, can I get a phone next year? Can I get one for my 7th birthday? Mm-hmm. Well, David at school has one, and I'm like, I'm not David's parents. I will beat you. Not really. I'm just kidding. But it's kind of one of those things where society is different. It's changing. It's evolving. Technology is rampant. Mm-hmm. My car will drive itself. So it's accelerating very quickly. And I think with that being said, there's some stuff that I think that we'll talk about today that parents need to be aware of, that teenagers need to be aware of, that kids need to be aware of, and some of the signs that you see that you need to watch for. I think that, you go into a restaurant, and not knocking any parents, because God knows I've given out my phone to my children to, like, for the people next to us for their sake. But it's like, here's a phone, here's a phone, here's a phone, here's a phone. And there's so much power and so much stuff that's inside of it that we have to be careful as teenagers, as people, as individuals, but definitely as parents, of monitoring your children. They're not capable at the age of 8 and 9 and 13 to make decisions for themselves without being monitored.
Exactly. Mom hates whenever I say this, but there's a generation gap whenever it comes to technology, whenever y'all grew up, and then whenever I grew up, essentially. And I'm sure it's going to be that way whenever I have kids as well. But you guys didn't have to grow up wondering, oh, is this person that I'm messaging with really who they say that they are?
Right.
Because you handed out their number or a beeper or, whatever it may be. You knew that it was that person that you were talking to.
Right.
But with social media today, you could pose as anyone that you want to be. You could be 13. You can be 72. You can be a male. You can be female. It doesn't matter. You can portray whatever persona on social media that you want. And essentially, you don't know if they're lying or not.
For sure. And I definitely don't want to give the wrong message when I say this, but I remember my first AOL account. And then, so nobody in the house could, I know you don't remember this, but nobody in the house could be on the phone. And then, you press the button and it would say, and I remember, my first screen name was, Coca-Cola Cowboy. And I don't know where that came from. But it was, I remember one of the cool things to do, one of the rules that my parents had was I wasn't allowed to get in chat rooms. Mm-hmm. But if I was left unattended with the computer for long enough, everybody would go into the chat rooms and they would put ASL, and it was age, sex, location. And people were giving out how old they were. But the whole thing is like you said, you never know at that point who the other person was. And I didn't have I know that it was not a great experience, but it really did open up my eyes to the potential of what could be, and I know that you've had an experience that it was almost a follow through experience with that, and that scares me for my kids. But before we jump into your story, one of the things that has impressed me about you, probably more than a lot that I've seen, is the fact of you had the opportunity to have a crutch for the rest of your life. This happened to me. I was a victim. In my business, I work with people, and they come in and they have a poverty-stricken mentality of this happened to me, and now it's my platform that I'm going to sit on for the rest of my life. And I'm not going to move past it because it's something that happened to me. I've seen you go from this happened to me, so now I'm going to use it as fuel to make sure that it doesn't happen to the next person, to bring awareness, to have conversations like these.
Yeah. I've always said that if my story can help save the life of just one person, then in my eyes, it was all worth it.
Absolutely.
And I'm a firm believer in the saying, everything happens for a reason.
Right.
I believe that my story needs to be heard.
Right.
No one's talking about this. Everyone wants to brush it up under the rug. They want to wipe their hands clean and just be done with it.
Yeah.
But we can't do that. Someone has to talk about it, and that person's me.
Yeah,
it has
absolutely.
to be me.
So if you will, tell us a little bit about how we got here. Share your story with us and how you decided to, why human trafficking is so important to you.
Yeah. So whenever I was 12 years old, I started a new middle school, Sims Middle School, and I was elected as class representative. And I was the responsible one in the group. I was always messaging everyone, letting them know, hey, be sure to turn in your field trip money on Friday. Hey, bring money for snack on Wednesday.
I'm the reason.
Yes.
People like you are the reason why people like me got to go on the field trip.
Yes.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
To the rest of us.
And so during that time, I was gathering so much information, whether it be social media handles, phone numbers, just some sort of point of contact.
Right.
And especially on social media, whenever I was adding everyone and getting a ton of requests in return,
right,
I wasn't asking myself the important question of, okay, do you actually know this person?
Right.
I was just going down the line, hitting accept.
Right.
Not paying any attention.
Well, I'm sure as a girl in middle school, it's also important as well to how many friends do I have versus how many friends that they have, a little bit.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. That for sure, that played a part into it.
Yeah, for sure.
And when, along with that, I received some sort of messages, and one in particular was like, hey, how was your day today? I thought I knew this person. It looked like a normal middle schooler's Instagram account. And so I responded and said, good, how was yours? And this conversation lasted for about 2 weeks, completely normal, just a little bit of back and forth, not really much depth in the conversation, until one day they started asking for nude photos.
Yeah.
And growing up, I was never taught what to do if ever put in that circumstance.
Right.
Of course, I mean, my parents have had the talk with me of like, oh, stranger danger, you
Right.
know, make sure if anyone touches you, that kind of
Yeah.
thing, you know?
Yeah, tell us if something happens.
Yeah, exactly. But never have anything happen on social media. Or,
Right.
if, you know, and that was such... I never would have expected that question to pop up. So I was
sure.
a little bit of like a deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
And whenever we were conversating in the prior weeks beforehand, this person was gathering a ton of information about me. Like I said, they knew I had 2 amazing parents. My mom's a real estate agent. Her information's all over the internet.
Right.
He knew about my sister, which me and my sister are super close. She's
Right.
like a second mom to me.
Yeah.
And he knew that I competed in dance, ran track. He knew all of these things about me. And I didn't know a whole lot about him.
Right.
And he used that against me. He knew how close I was with my sister, and he threatened to kill her if I didn't send anything
That's so
that
crazy.
he wanted.
And what's crazy is social media makes that so easy to... And even though I think social media is a place where we put like our highlights, not necessarily, we put what we want people to see rather than, but if I went on a trip with my family to Disney World, we posted pictures. You can see the names of my children. You know how old they are, that type stuff. So I could see where that would be like super easy for somebody to gather that information and to be able to use that.
Yeah, and I was in middle school. I was posting my life everywhere on social media.
Right,
You know?
right.
That's just what they do.
Yeah.
And like I said before, I grew up on like drug-free week. I knew what to do if I was at a party and someone handed me a red Solo cup. I knew exactly what to do in that circumstance,
Right.
but never if someone messaged me on social media asking for nude photos.
Well, to be honest, I worked in a youth group, and I worked at a youth group at the time, and the pastor of the church at the time, I was bringing this type stuff up. And one of the things that I was told is, no, you can't share this information. You can't talk about this. And my response to that was, this is literally what kids are dealing with today. You know what I mean? So it's kind of one of those things where, especially with, I don't know, I don't have Snapchat anymore. But at one point, Snapchat, when you sent a picture, after a certain amount of time, it disappeared.
Yeah, it still does.
Yeah, so it was kind of one of those things where it was like, whenever it first came out, I was like, this just looks like a bad idea. This looks like it was created for something that it should not be.
Yeah.
But not, if you have Snapchat, you do you. But it's kind of one of those things where, but I would say, if you have, and I don't want to I want to jump back into your story, but I would say to parents, you need a way to monitor what your kids are doing. Because again, just like me at the age of 11, 12, 13, they're not capable of, their brains are not developed to a place. They could know that something's wrong, but I think that the shame of it sometimes also keeps you from saying anything.
Yeah.
Because of, now you've talked to this person for a certain amount of time. What were you doing talking to them for this long? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like those questions and that type guilt, I could see where it weigh heavily on you.
Yeah. And as a kid, you don't go out looking for this type of trouble.
No.
And I think a little bit, especially with me, I was so nervous with the fact of, okay, well, am I going to get in trouble if I tell somebody? Because I knew at that point I just sent child pornography.
Right.
I didn't know if I was going to jail.
Right.
And I was 12.
Right.
That's scary.
That's really hard to wrap. That's really hard to wrap your. And this is what I know, and this is something that I've tried to be very vocal about to other parents. That maybe, and not saying that people please do not take this as I'm knocking anybody or your parenting. But I've brought up stuff to parents that their kids are 12, 13. This parents like to think that nothing would ever happen to them, and I think that as individuals, we like to think nothing would ever happen to us.
Yeah.
But I think that it's something where it can happen. And it can happen really quickly in a nice neighborhood with 2 great parents, with siblings, a fence, a dog, eating dinner at a dinner table, having conversations. So, yeah. So, pretty much at this point, he's asked you to send pictures. You've sent them at that point. Now what?
So after I sent the photo, I immediately went onto Google and put in his screen name. And whenever I hit the search button, it came up and it said, the minute you report him, his people will find you and they will kill you and your family.
That's so crazy.
Imagine you're 12 years old staring at your phone. I was a nervous wreck.
Yeah.
And at this point, he knew that he had me. I was putty in his hands.
Yeah.
And this lasted for 3 years. And to the point where it was like clockwork. He knew my schedule. We had a routine. I would have to stay up until 1, 3 o'clock in the morning, basically performing for him.
That's so crazy.
And he was very tech savvy. He'd proven that he knew how to hack into my accounts. And I'm sure I was videoed whenever I was doing everything. I don't know where those are at today, if they're on the dark web. I have no idea.
That's so crazy.
But since everything was so routine, I later realized that I may have had an audience. And that's why, because whenever I couldn't get on at a certain time, he would get angry, very, very angry. Sending threats once again. Oh, well, I'll post this all over your social media.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. So 3 years that this happened.
Yeah.
And eventually it came to light. We had went to Las Vegas for a national dance competition. It was me, my mom, and Savannah. And he was there. I was in a dressing room. And I don't know, you probably haven't been to a dance competition.
Well, actually, I used to. No, I've never been in one, but my niece, she dances.
Okay.
So I've been to a couple before.
So
yeah.
Our dressing rooms, it's like a huge open room. Nothing's in it. You just kind of find an empty space and like set your stuff down.
Right.
And this mom from another dance studio made an announcement to everyone saying, hey, well, there's this guy who's in front of the door. He's pacing. So if your daughter's changing, like cover her up. We're fixing to tell security. I was getting ready for my next dance. I wasn't really paying that much attention.
Right.
You know, my head was elsewhere.
Right.
But my mom remembered that. And a week after, no, I think it was 4 days after we got back from Las Vegas, I was in my room. It was late at night. Mom had this gut instinct of like, go check on Bre.
Right.
And I 100% believe it was God.
For sure.
And she made a beeline to my bedroom door. My dad was at work. He was at the fire station. And she walks in. My light's still on. I have a full face of makeup, and I'm sitting on my bed. It's 1 a.m.
Right.
You know, red flag.
Right.
For Mama Bear. And so she walks up to me, and she's like, what are you doing up so late? And I gave the classic excuse of, oh, well, I just couldn't sleep. She just knew it wasn't right. And so she came up to me, and she held her hand out like this. And in my household, whenever mom or dad does this, you have to put your phone in their hand. And so I did. And I went from one side of the bed to the other. It was like word vomit at this point. And I started saying, you know, it's okay. You can just go ahead and give me my punishment now, whatever it may be. I'll take my punishment now. She hadn't gone through my phone.
Right.
But
she hasn't found anything at
nothing.
this point. Yeah.
And at this point, mom's like, okay, it's not right. And so
Right.
she sent me to her room. I slept there for the night. She didn't sleep. She was up all night just going through and basically unveiling what had been happening to me for the past 3 years. And a couple days later, mom researches for a living. So she gathered some dirt on this person to the point where whenever we went to file a report, she had it all in a folder. All the information was there. This guy just had to put the information into the system. And we went to the local sheriff's department out here in Sims, and the officer wouldn't get out of his car. It was the middle of summer. You know it gets hot.
Oh, for sure.
And he wouldn't even make eye contact with us and said, well, you know, I can write this up as harassing communications, but I'll tell you right now, it's not going to go anywhere. And he had made up his mind right then and there that, in fact, it wasn't.
Yeah, he wasn't going to be any help.
Yeah. And thank God I have parents who don't take no for an answer.
Right.
And so
right.
they reached out to one of their friends who's a deputy in Mobile, who then put us in contact with the Child Advocacy Center, who then put us in contact with a local FBI office. And at that point, Mom went to, give them the report, and she walked in and she said, I won't give you this information unless you tell me right now that my child's a victim. Because she didn't know if I was going to be in trouble either.
Right.
At this point, we had found out that this guy lived in California, and that's federal. He had dual citizenship between the United States and Mexico. We believe that he had his own business. We believe that he was not selling hats, but people.
Yeah. That's so insane. Like, to think of somebody in Sims, Alabama, to come this close to, and I think the Bible says the steps of a righteous person is ordered by the Lord. And I think that those prayers that our parents pray over us has protected us time and time again. Things happen for a reason, but it's giving you the platform and the opportunity to, not that God done this to you, but I think that through this, you're going to be able to use it.
Yeah.
Like, even as of right now, to help other people.
For sure, because in Las Vegas, he had sent me a message later that night that said, I just wanted to let you know that I was really close to you today.
That's so insane.
He was there to take me. All he had to do was just get his hands on me. And I believe 100% that he had a price tag on my head. He had me sold. He just needed to get to me. Thank God that's not the story I'm here telling you today.
Yeah,
Like I was, physically trafficked. But whenever we talk about human trafficking, I think that we're leaving out the factor of you can be trafficked over the internet. And that's what happened to me.
Right.
And like we've been talking about with technology, it's something that we don't think about. Maybe it's something that develops more in the future, especially with COVID. And I know that percentages are going to be up, numbers are going to be higher, but we won't know until years down the road whenever people start coming forward. Because
people, like, as of right now, like the social distancing and people not seeing one another, like the whole thing is there's telltale signs of, if me and you were talking and I see you start to get emotional, there's stuff that I can see in your face to know it. But I think that's going to be stuff that we're not, like you're saying, that's going to be stuff that, like, there's signs that you can look for that people aren't even going to be able to see right now.
Yeah. Of course.
And if someone, and not like taken and gone, but say for instance, like they're not as social as what they used to be and that type stuff, it's kind of right now, it's kind of common.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We just don't have that human interaction anymore. And, you try to check up on your friends and family, but it's hard sometimes. And I get it. I know I'm 100 miles an hour all day, every day. I absolutely get it. But
with this information, with all this stuff being done, you're using your platform that you have to make a difference in through human trafficking. And as we have up here, you have a nonprofit that you've started.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that, if you will.
Yeah, so I'm proud to say that I'm a CEO at the age of 18.
Awesome. Roll Tide.
But what Stopping Traffic essentially does is we want to work with victims one-on-one whenever they get out of that lifestyle. I believe that most of the time these people want to go back into what they were in beforehand is because it's hard to start from scratch, especially whenever you've been doing that one thing for so long and that's all you know how to do.
Right. It's almost like you grew, like in your situation, if your mom doesn't intervene, regardless of whether you're ever trafficked or not, 3-4 years down the road later, past the time that like it was put to a stop, you kind of grew up doing it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like part of who you are. And when it's taken away, this is one thing that, and we can jump back into it, but this is one thing that I've realized, like, so with being in youth ministry and helping different churches and stuff like that, one thing that I've noticed is it's real easy to say, hey, come to my church. Hey, come listen to the message. Hey, come get saved. Great, you're saved. But like in with a lot of places, that's where it stops. But the whole thing is, if your friend group doesn't change, so what happens is if you don't have that, if there's not a change there of the people that you're around and stuff like that, you don't have anybody or anything to occupy that time that you were spending doing something else.
Yeah, for sure. And so I know for a fact that that's why they want to stay in it. That's why, because the idea of having to start a new life all over again, that is so scary.
Yeah.
And in this life, in this world, you have to have a job.
Right.
And so if my organization can help provide funds of these girls or guys going to some sort of vocational school, a junior college, cosmetology school, I don't expect these people to be 4-year students. If they are, great. I will help you as much as I can.
Right.
But I know that's a lot. It's a lot for most people in general.
For sure.
But with some sort of education, some sort of skill under your belt, you're going to feel a lot better of, okay, well, now I don't have to do that anymore. That's not the life that I have to live anymore.
Right.
And that's just one thing that I want to do with my organization. I want to, essentially in the future buy a dog that can sniff out child pornography. That's a thing now, which is absolutely
I know. Whenever
insane.
I talked to you on the phone the other day, like that blows my mind. Like I started doing a little bit of research as well, and I looked at the organization that you were telling me about. That's amazing. And so one thing that I want to do, obviously you've been given a platform, and so have I. And so through this platform, I want to try to stay connected to your organization, and throughout the time, see if there's not a way for us to be able to raise funds to help, partner with you in that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, because the need's out there for sure.
Absolutely.
And I don't know how far this is going to go. I just know that opportunities just keep arising, and with me being faithful and that God has a plan for me and this is all for his purpose, I'm just taking those little leaps of faith, and
for sure,
little by little, it's growing so much, and in a short amount of time. I mean, I opened my bank account for my nonprofit like just a couple of days ago.
Yeah, that's so cool. I saw the picture. That's awesome. So if the people that are listening today or watching today want to be part of what you're doing, how do they reach you?
Yeah, so my social media, you can just go on Miss Mobile Bay, whether it be Instagram or Facebook. I'm fixing to set up a Instagram and Facebook for Stopping Traffic, and it's traffic with a K.
Okay.
And we're working on building a website right now. I'm sure whenever that's up and running, I'll be posting it everywhere and, hoping everyone can share it and get the word out. But it's going to be Stopping Traffic as well. So
that's so cool. Is there any information or any advice that you would give me two things? One piece of advice that you would give to a teenager that may be in the same situation that you're in right now that don't know a way out. And two, what's some advice that you would give a parent?
Yeah, so for kids, if you're in this situation, I think it's important to know this isn't your fault. You did not go looking for this trouble. Whenever in my circumstance, this predator preyed on me in my own home. My parents weren't able to protect me in the safety of their own house. This isn't your fault. Tell someone. I never would have imagined the amount of help and support that I would have gathered from so many people who didn't even know me that well.
Right.
But they wanted justice for me, and they were willing to fight day and night. So people are out there. People want to help you. Tell someone. It's worth it. You don't have to live like this anymore. And as a parent, it's your duty to protect your kid in all shapes, forms, whether it be in person, over social media. And I know it's uncomfortable. Trust me. I've had those conversations with my parents. I know it makes your skin crawl and you get goosebumps. You don't want to have it. I get it. But in this day and age, we have to.
But think about the alternative. Like the whole thing is like your mom pushes through the feeling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like be prepared. Call out the elephant in the room. Be willing to have awkward conversations with your kids.
Yeah. And since I've had those conversations with my parents, we're so close now. We have a strong bond, and I know it's because we've pushed back all the curtains, we've laid everything out on the table, and we've been raw and we've been real. For
sure. And there's a sense of freedom, I think, that comes from it. Like the weight that's lifted off of you at that point, regardless of, I believe the weight that's lifted off and the freedom definitely outweighs the shame that you carried for the time prior to.
For sure. It's so liberating in a way. And as a parent, if you don't acknowledge this, you're being ignorant. You
your
really
child's
are.
not perfect. Like the whole thing is like they're 12, they're 13, they're 16, they're 17.
The world, with the tablet, with the phone, with the computer, the world is in their hands. You don't send your 16-year-old whenever they turn 16 on their birthday, you don't hand them their keys and say good luck. You don't do that.
Peace out.
You don't do that as a parent. You provide them training. You go to the empty parking lot, you make them parallel park, and you make them pull into the parking spot from every different direction.
You let them just about run you into everything.
Yes. You help make them safe and comfortable whenever the time for them to be behind the wheel by themselves arises. Why don't we do that with cell phones? Because you know in a vehicle that their life is at risk. You know that. That's why you provide all these different things to make sure that they're safe.
Right.
But
then hand them a cell phone that they can tap into the entire world.
Exactly.
And it's good luck.
Exactly.
Here, 13-year-old.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. That is so crazy. Jesus, help me and my children. Well, I have enjoyed the interview with you today so much. I'm glad that we were able to have this today. And I look forward to all the places that you'll go, all the things that you'll see. And I know that you'll be successful just because of you've got God on your side. You've got great parents. You've got a great community. But mostly because of your mindset. Yeah. You have the opportunity to differentiate between a victim mentality and a survivor mentality. Mm-hmm. And I'm super proud of you.
Well, thank you.
So thank you so much for being on the podcast. Today's podcast has been sponsored by A1 McDuffie Sanitation. So if you need garbage service of any kind, give us a call. I'm Kenneth Havens. This is Bre Vigor, and thank you for watching the Made in Sims podcast.